Mr. Webb, welcome to the African American Museum of Beginnings.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, would you share with us your path to achievement? To what got you to where you are today internally?
Yes. Well, everything in my life starts with my grandmother. Her name was Annie Ragland. Everybody knew her as Mama Annie. She was a strong Christian woman and the matriarch of our family. She moved me here to Southern California when I was 11, and it was a real great thing that she did for me, and a real risk for her to move away from family and friends to come to Southern California with not really knowing anybody here. And she did that so that I could have a better opportunity than I could have in South Bend, Indiana. And the values that she lived herself and those that she taught me inspired me to believe that that I could do whatever it is that I've been fortunate to be able to do.
So she helped instill that confidence and courage that it's taken to become who you are.
Yeah, it's the confidence and the courage, but it is also the belief that God has a plan, for every life, and especially that God had a plan for my life. Mm-hmm. And that as long as I followed the teachings of Christ and lived a life as best I can as a sinner in a Christ-like manner, and a life of service to others, that I would be okay. Zig Ziglar wrote a book called See You at the Top. Mm-hmm. And the way that he put it was, you can get everything you want out of life if you just help enough other people get what they want out of life. And that was my grandmother's teaching, that was her philosophy, and it has worked for me.
Man, what a lesson, what a wonderful lesson. And you, off camera, we were chatting, you were telling me that over the years, you've employed over 23,000 people.
Yes.
And you've helped a great many of them embark on their life of working and employment.
Yes.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, it makes me feel great. A few years ago, I had a young man come back by who worked for me when he was 16 and 17 years old. And he's now, at the time, he was a captain in the sheriff's department. And he credited a lot of his early learning to the experience that he had at McDonald's and mm-hmm. at our McDonald's. Mm-hmm. And I've had that happen so many times where I've seen people that worked at McDonald's who have gone on to do bigger and better things. Fortunately, we've also had a number of people that started with us at a young age that are still with us. One of my supervisors, an African-American young lady, started with us when she was 16, and now she supervises 5 of our restaurants, has a wonderful family, and a number of our restaurant managers, the same thing is true. So, you have an opportunity to touch lives. Many people take what they learn and go on and do other things with it, and a few take what they learn and go on to become successful at McDonald's.
Now, I understand. I read your biography, and it's not been a bed of roses for you. I mean, there's been some zigs and zags. Tell us about your path to achievement.
Yeah. Well, I went to Manual Arts High School in Los Angeles. And from the time I was 13, I had a paycheck job. And from that day to this day, I've never not had a paycheck job.
From 13?
From 13, yeah.
Man.
So, I came from a very, I would say, low-income family. Mm-hmm. We were not poor. Mm-hmm. We just didn't have any money. But we were not poor. We were rich in spirit and rich in love, and in caring environments, through the church, through the people that my grandmother worked for, and through people in the community itself. We got all that we needed in order to be able to move forward. But work was my primary road to success. I always knew that if I was competitive, if I scored the most points in work, like you had to be to win a basketball or a football game, that I could be successful. And every job that I ever had, that was the approach that I took. So I was always able to do well in that job and move on to the next job. After high school, it was during the Vietnam War, and I knew that I wasn't ready to go to college. And I knew that I didn't want to get drafted into the Army. And so I joined the United States Coast Guard, became a radioman, was able, other than the time that I was in school in Connecticut, to stay in California. And primarily, most of my time was up in the Bay Area. I was able to benefit by being more disciplined. It was the first time that I really had a male presence that was omnipresent in my life. And it was the first time that I couldn't avoid the discipline that the military gives you and brings to you. And that added a lot to my life. After that, and during that time, I went to school and just kept taking classes. And afterwards, I sold cars after I got out of the service. And I worked in the war on poverty at the local level of poverty programs, and then ultimately went to the Community Action Agency, where I was able to rise to manage a department at the Community Action Agency, and ultimately was offered an opportunity to come to work for McDonald's in a high-level management capacity. And I worked for them for 12 years. The last 5, I was the regional vice president here in Southern California, and responsible, in addition to Southern California, for Hawaii. And I decided that my children couldn't inherit my job, and that I was not moving outside of Southern California, so it limited my progression in the company. But at the same time, it gave me the possibility of becoming a franchisee, which I did in Pomona in 1985, and we've been growing ever since.
Well, I marvel at your self-direction. It sounds like from the time you were 13 till this very moment, you've always been self-directed, taking advantage of your talents, taking advantage of your energy. And your grandmother instilled that in you?
Oh, yeah. She would always tell me, what you are is the gift that God gave you. What you make of yourself is your gift back to God. And so, like everybody else, I'm a work in progress, still trying to make something of myself.
Well, I know one thing's for sure. Well, I know several things for sure. You are highly respected, and not only in Southern California, but throughout the United States. Does that feel like a responsibility to be such a role model?
Well, it's definitely a responsibility, and it is a challenge to live up to that responsibility all the time. Because, there are a lot of times in life when, you know right, but you want to do wrong. All of us are faced with that challenge all the time. But the more you value the status that you have attained over time, the more you choose the path that allows you not only to maintain that status, but to expand it. Really, success is all about the choices that you make. It really is all about the choices that you make. It's not a secret. If you act first with respect, integrity, and trust, then that is what is going to come back to you. If you respect others, they're going to respect you. If you have integrity, if you do what you say, when you promise people something, you actually do it, then the higher percentage that you do that, the more success you have. And the more trust people have in you, so that it gets easier to accomplish the same thing. You still have to work, but you just don't have to work as hard. It's kind of like that pump on a cold morning. When I stayed with my great-grandparents when I was 10 in Arkansas, we didn't have running water in the house. We had a pump outside. And on a cold morning, you had to pump like crazy to get the water to start to come. But then once it started to come, you didn't have to pump like crazy, just a little bit to keep it coming. And respect, integrity, and trust, your standing in the community is like that. It's hard and you have to work hard at it, but once you have it, it's easier. You don't have to work as hard as you did to get it. You just have to work smart and keep doing the same things that cause you to be successful in order to maintain it and cause it to grow.
But I agree with that 100%. But it just seems that there's so many distractions, especially for the young people these days. There are so many distractions. And now with the handheld gadgets, the distractions are multiplied. What would you suggest to our young people as far as developing self-direction?
Yeah. So there are 4 attitudes that human beings can have.
Mm-hmm.
Can, can't, will, and won't.
Mm-hmm.
I can do it. I can't do it. I will do it. I won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nobody can help somebody that won't do it.
Right.
Nobody. And adults and even children have the opportunity to make that choice for themselves. So the people, the people that will always be successful are the people that will do it. I will do it. No matter what it is, I will do it. I will do whatever is necessary in order to accomplish this objective. Mm-hmm. That is a success attitude. The people that get the most out of it are the people that also can do it. Mm-hmm. I can do it and I will do it. I know how. I can do it and I will do it. The people that can become successful are the people that can't do it. But once they learn how to do it, once somebody teaches them or they have the opportunity, then they will do it. So the foundation of success in my mind is that attitude and that spirit of I will do it. Call me. I will go. Mm-hmm. I will accomplish whatever the need is. And if I know how to do it, I'll do it right now. And if I don't know how to do it, all you have to do is show me. Because as soon as I know how to do it, I'm going to accomplish the objective and I'm going to do it very well.
Well, with that philosophy, you just dissolved distractions. Distractions lose their importance once you are self-directed. Once you say, I can and I will, I'm going to, distractions melt away.
Yeah, they become enablers.
Yeah.
So technology can either be a distraction or it can be an enabler. Mm-hmm. If you're playing games 6 hours a day, the technology that you're using is a distraction. If you're playing life 6 hours a day, the technology you use is an enabler to allow you to experience more during that time of your life.
Well, they've done research, and I think the average person is on the internet about 180 hours just for recreation each month. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of time taken from your week or your month to something that's non-productive. And that number is rising. Mm-hmm. How can our young people break away from that? Any ideas?
Well, to me, the most important thing that I can do is to be successful. Mm-hmm. To achieve something, to build something that is greater tomorrow than it was yesterday because of what I did today. So all we own is the time of our life. Mm-hmm. Every one of us have a book of life. That book tells the start of the story, of our story, when we were born. And we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there will be one day when we die. Mm-hmm. We don't know when and we don't know whether. And so the issue is, what are we going to achieve? What are we going to accomplish between the opening page of the book and the end part of the book? What are we going to accomplish? What is our legacy going to be? And when you value that legacy, when you value what you can accomplish and what you can achieve and the success it can bring to you, then you begin to spend your time in the way of what you value. So if I value education, I will spend the appropriate amount of time that's necessary for me to get my education. You know, and that's different for all of us because all of us have a different intellectual capacity. But if I value the education, then I'm going to do whatever is necessary. I'm going to prioritize it. And it's not that I'm not going to recreate. It is just that that's not going to be the main thing. The main thing is going to be education, or the main thing is going to be productivity in my work, or in my business, or in my church, or in my school, or in my community-based involvement and engagement. And when those things become the main thing and you distribute your time in order to achieve your priorities, then you still have time to recreate. You just don't have as much.
Right, right. You know, in addition to being a very successful businessman, you sound to be a very inspirational teacher. Now, I understand you were mentored by Rev TM Chambers.
Yes.
Can you tell us what impact he had on your life?
Yeah. Well, it was from afar. I mean, I never really had a chance to really spend a whole lot of time with him or anything like that, but he was one of the successful ministers in the community. Had a church and an old movie theater at 54th and Western, and every Sunday evening he had a broadcast, and when you went every Sunday evening, it was a show. And everybody in LA seemed like came. You know, lots of people with furs and big cars and that kind of stuff. And so, you know, if you want to be successful, go where the successful folks is at. You know? And so that's what I did. I went to his church on Sunday. And I remember he had one sermon. He preached from a stepladder that was 17 rungs high. And this sermon, every time he hit another point, he climbed another rung until he was standing at the top of the stepladder, and then he would jump off. It was very dramatic in terms of how he made his points. Another sermon, he would start and he would be preaching, and there was a casket on the stage, and then all of a sudden the top of the casket would open and he would sit up in the casket. You know, and so what you learned was that, you know, drama attracts attention.
Right.
You know, and so I learned a lot from him. And James Cleveland was his choir director, so he had a wonderful choir. You know, and his ushers were just so dressed to the nines, and they were so precise about how they ushered people. But what I remembered about all of that was, once you got through all of that, at the end of it, he had this big pretty white Bible, and it had gold leaf around it, and he would stand there taking the offering. He said, okay, everybody that's going to give $100. Now you have to understand, this was in 1962, 63. Everybody's going to give $100. Come on up now. And people would line up all around both sides of the movie theater to come and lay $100 on that Bible. Then he would say, everybody's going to give $50. Come on up. And then there'd be another line of people. And then he would go sit down and his deacons would take the rest of the offering. So what I learned was, if you do what you do with excellence, with distinction, and in a unique and entertaining way, you will be rewarded.
What a lesson. Now, this was 1962.
62.
Man, and you describe it as if it were current. It was right now. I mean, it's fresh in your mind.
Yes,
fresh in your
it is.
Well, Reggie, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you here. And this is part of the oral history for the African American Museum of Beginnings here in Pomona, California. And yours has been invaluable to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Ed.
Appreciate good seeing you again.
Good to see you.
I'm Ed Pruitt of the African American Museum of Beginnings. It has been a pleasure and an honor having Mr. Reginald Webb as our guest for the oral history of the African American Museum of Beginnings.